Zara, please don't go. Lucas's voice cracked, raw with desperation, as he gripped Zaria's hand in the chaotic Atlanta airport. Tears streamed down her face, but she pulled away, her suitcase a wall between them. I love you, he pleaded. I've always loved you. Could she tell him the truth? That she was leaving to save his father? Dive into a gripping tale of love, sacrifice, and secrets that will leave you breathless. Will Zaria's hidden mission tear her and Lucas apart forever? What shocking truth awaits her in Nairobi? Hit subscribe and tap the bell to catch our latest stories. Share in the comments, where are you watching from? Stay tuned to uncover a painting that changes everything and a love that defies all odds. Don't miss the twist that'll steal your heart. The Georgia sun hung low, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose as the dirt road wound through the sleepy town of Willow Creek. Dust swirled beneath the bare feet of Zaria Thompson, a girl of 10 with wild curly hair that caught the light like a crown of midnight. Her eyes, bright as embers, scanned the horizon, searching for the familiar silhouette of Lucas Bennett. He was late, again. She clutched a small sketch pad, her fingers smudged with charcoal from sketching the river that snaked through their town, its waters whispering secrets only they understood. Zaria perched on a mossy rock beneath the ancient oak by the riverbank, its gnarled branches stretching like arms toward the heavens. This was their place, their sanctuary. The tree stood as a silent witness to their laughter, their dreams, and the unspoken bond that tethered their hearts. She traced the rough bark with her finger, where two sets of initials, ZT and LB, were carved in a clumsy, childish scrawl. A smile tugged at her lips, but it faltered as a sharp voice cut through the stillness. Zaria Thompson, you getting yourself dirty again? Her mother, Clara, stood at the edge of the path, hands on hips, her apron fluttering in the breeze. Clara's voice was stern, but her eyes held a warmth that softened the rebuke. You know folks talk when you're out here with that Bennett boy? Zaria's cheeks flushed, but she held her ground. Ain't nothing wrong with Lucas, Mama. He's my friend. Her voice was steady, defiant. In Willow Creek, where whispers of race and propriety lingered like morning fog, their friendship raised eyebrows. Zaria, with her deep brown skin, and Lucas, with his sun-bleached hair and freckled face, were an odd pair in the eyes of the town. But to them the world was simple. They were Zaria and Lucas, bound by the river and the oak. Clara sighed, brushing a stray curl from Zaria's forehead. Just be careful, baby. Folks don't always see what you see. She turned back toward the house, leaving Zaria to her thoughts. A rustle in the tall grass snapped her attention. Lucas burst through, panting, his blue eyes sparkling with mischief. Sorry, Z. Pa had me fixing the truck again. He held up a pocket knife, its blade glinting. Brought something to make it up to you. Zaria's eyes widened. You gonna get in trouble for stealing that, Lucas Bennett? Ain't stealing if it's mine, he grinned, dropping to his knees beside the oak. Come on, let's make our mark deeper, so it lasts forever. She hesitated, glancing at the path where her mother had vanished. The town's whispers echoed in her mind, words like trouble and improper. But Lucas's grin was infectious, and the oak seemed to beckon. She knelt beside him, her sketchpad forgotten. Together they carved their initials deeper into the bark, the knife scraping with a satisfying crunch. The act felt like a pact, a vow that no one could break. Forever, Z, Lucas said, his voice soft but fierce. You and me. Forever, she echoed, her heart swelling. The river murmured its approval, and for a moment the world was theirs alone. But the moment shattered as a shout rang out. Lucas, get your sorry self home. It was Mr. Bennett, Lucas's father, his voice rough as gravel. Zaria froze, her pulse racing. Michael Bennett was a kind man, but his temper flared when work piled up at the garage. Lucas scrambled to his feet, shoving the knife into his pocket. Gotta go, he whispered, but his eyes lingered on her. Meet me here tomorrow? Always, Zaria said, her voice barely audible. He flashed a smile and sprinted off, leaving her beneath the oak, the air heavy with the weight of their promise. As the years rolled by, the oak remained their constant. At 12, they raced to the river, Zaria's laughter echoing as she outran Lucas, her sketches now filled with vibrant scenes of their adventures. At 14, they sat in the tree's shade, sharing dreams, Zaria of painting the world, Lucas of saving it with science. The town's whispers grew louder, but they learned to ignore them, their bond a shield against judgment. By 16, Zaria's talent bloomed. Her paintings displayed at the county fair drew gasps and murmurs. One, a vivid depiction of the river at dusk, won first prize. Lucas stood beside her, prouder than anyone, though he teased her mercilessly. "You're gonna be famous, Z, and forget all about me." "Never," she shot back, nudging him. But her heart fluttered when his hand brushed hers, a spark she didn't yet understand. Lucas, too, was changing. His lanky frame filled out, his hands calloused from helping his father at the garage. He talked of college, of studying environmental engineering to protect rivers like theirs. Zaria listened, sketching his profile in her mind, her pencil capturing the curve of his jaw, the intensity in his eyes. She didn't show him those drawings. They felt too private, too revealing. One summer evening, at 18, they lay beneath the oak, the stars a glittering canopy above. The air was thick with the scent of honeysuckle and the hum of cicadas. Lucas turned to her, his voice low. "Z, you ever think about us? Like more than friends?" Her breath caught. The question hung between them, heavy as the Georgia heat. She wanted to say yes, to confess the feelings that had grown with every shared moment. But fear gripped her, the fear of change, of losing what they had. "You're my best friend, Lucas," she said, her voice trembling. "Ain't that enough?" He looked away, hurt flickering in his eyes, but he nodded. "Yeah, it's enough." The silence that followed was louder than the river. The next day, Zaria regretted her words. She wanted to tell him the truth, to bridge the gap she'd created. But life moved fast. College loomed, pulling them to different cities, Zaria to Atlanta for art, Lucas to Savannah for engineering. They promised to stay close, to write, to meet beneath the oak each summer. Zaria clung to that promise, her heart aching for the words she hadn't said. As she packed for college, she stood one last time beneath the oak, her fingers tracing their initials. The carvings were weathered but deep, like their bond. She whispered to the tree, to the river, to the boy she loved but hadn't admitted. "I'll tell him someday," she vowed. The oak stood silent, its branches swaying in the breeze, as if holding her secret safe. The Savannah air was thick with the scent of magnolias and the hum of summer. But for Lucas Bennett, the world had shrunk to the sterile glow of his phone screen. It was a week before Zaria's 23rd birthday, and he sat on the sagging couch of his cramped apartment, the silver ring in his pocket burning like a coal against his thigh. He'd saved for 2 years to buy it, a simple band etched with a tiny oak leaf, a nod to the tree that held their childhood vows. He'd planned to propose beneath that oak in Willow Creek, to finally speak the love he'd carried since he was 10. But the phone call from his mother had changed everything. "Lucas, it's your pa." Her voice had cracked through the line an hour ago, each word a shard of glass. "He's got lung cancer. Stage 4. Doctors say it ain't good." The words echoed in his skull, drowning out the hum of cicadas outside. Michael Bennett, the man who'd taught him to fix engines and cast a fishing line, was dying. Lucas's hands trembled as he clutched the phone, his mother's sobs fading into static. The garage, their family's lifeline, couldn't cover the hospital bills piling up like storm clouds. He stood pacing the worn floorboards, his boots scuffing against the grain. The ring felt heavier now, a promise he couldn't keep. How could he ask Zaria to build a life with him when his family was crumbling? She was in Atlanta, her paintings lighting up galleries, her dreams soaring. He couldn't drag her into this darkness, this small-town tragedy. His jaw tightened, resolve hardening like iron. He'd quit his internship at the environmental firm, move back to Willow Creek, and help his mother. The proposal would wait, maybe forever. The thought of Zaria twisted his heart. Her face flashed in his mind. Those ember-bright eyes, the way her curls caught the sun, her laugh that could silence the river's murmur. They'd kept their bond alive through college with letters, calls, and summers beneath the oak. But last summer, when he'd asked if she ever saw them as more than friends, her hesitation had stung. "Ain't that enough?" she'd said, her voice a fragile thread. He'd nodded, hiding the ache, but it hadn't stopped him from dreaming of a future together. Now that dream felt like a betrayal of his family's needs. His phone buzzed, snapping him back. Zaria's name lit the screen, and his chest tightened. He let it ring, each chime a dagger. He couldn't talk to her now, not when his voice might break, not when he had to be strong for his pa. The call went to voicemail, and her message came through, her Georgia drawl soft but edged with worry. "Lucas, you okay? You ain't called in days. I'm thinking of you." He closed his eyes, her words a warmth he didn't deserve. He typed a reply. "Busy with work, I'll call soon," and deleted it. The lie tasted bitter. Days bled into one another, each a blur of packing and farewells. Lucas quit his internship, his boss's disappointment a dull sting compared to the dread gnawing at him. He drove the 3 hours to Willow Creek, the familiar dirt roads stirring memories of racing Zaria to the river. The garage came into view, its faded sign creaking in the wind. Inside, his father sat in a worn chair, thinner than Lucas remembered, his coughs rattling like loose bolts. Michael's eyes, once sharp as a hawk's, were clouded with pain, but he managed a weak grin. "You didn't have to come, son." "Had to, Pa," Lucas said, his voice rough. "We're family." He hugged his father, feeling the frailty beneath the flannel shirt, and vowed to carry the weight his father no longer could. His mother, Ellen, bustled about, her hands never still, as if cooking or cleaning could hold the world together. "We'll manage," she said, but her red-rimmed eyes betrayed her. Lucas nodded, helping her sort bills, each one a reminder of the impossible cost of hope. He worked at the garage, his hands stained with grease, but the jobs were few and the hospital's demands grew like weeds. Zaria's calls kept coming, each one harder to ignore. On the 5th night, he sat on the porch, the stars above Willow Creek sharp as needles. Her latest voicemail played on repeat in his mind. "Lucas, something's wrong. I can feel it. Please, just talk to me." Her voice was a lifeline, but he feared it would pull him under. He needed to tell her, to explain, but the words felt like a trap. If he told her about his pa, she'd come running, her heart too big to stay away. And he couldn't let her sacrifice her dreams for his family's fight. The screen door creaked, and his mother stepped out, a mug of coffee in her hands. "You're avoiding her, ain't you?" she said, her voice gentle but piercing. "That girl loves you, Lucas. Always has." He looked away, the ring a heavy secret in his pocket. "She's got her life in Atlanta, Ma. I can't ask her to give that up." Ellen sat beside him, her silence heavy. "Love ain't about asking, son. It's about trusting someone to choose you, even when it's hard." Her words cut deep, but he shook his head. Trust felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. The next evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a familiar rumble broke the quiet. Zaria's old pickup truck pulled into the driveway, dust swirling like a storm. Lucas's heart lurched. She stepped out, her curls wild, her eyes blazing with determination. She wore a paint-splattered jacket, her sketch pad tucked under her arm, and the sight of her stole his breath. "Zaria," he managed, standing, his voice a cracked whisper. "You think you can hide from me, Lucas Bennett?" Her tone was sharp, but her eyes were soft, searching. "3 hours I drove, 'cause you won't pick up the damn phone. What's going on?" He froze, the truth clawing at his throat. "See, you shouldn't be here." His voice was raw, pleading. I gotta handle things." Her gaze narrowed, seeing through him like always. "Handle what? You look like you ain't slept in days." She stepped closer, her hand reaching for his, but he pulled back, the distance a knife in his chest. "It's Pa," he said finally, the words spilling like blood. "He's got cancer. Bad. I'm staying here, helping Ma. I can't be what you need right now." Zaria's face crumpled, but she didn't cry. She stood tall, her voice steady. "You don't get to decide what I need, Lucas. We're in this together." "No," he said, harsher than he meant. "You got your art, your future. I won't let you throw that away." The ring burned in his pocket, a promise he couldn't voice. "Go back to Atlanta, Z, please." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't argue. She nodded once, a silent surrender, and climbed into her truck. As she drove away, the dust cloud swallowed her, and Lucas felt the oak shadow stretch across his heart. He'd pushed her away to protect her, but the cost was a wound that might never heal. The Atlanta skyline glittered like a jagged crown against the dusk, but Zaria Thompson felt no spark in her heart. The city's hum, car horns, laughter, the pulse of jazz from street corners only deepened the silence within her. It had been a week since she'd driven back from Willow Creek, Lucas's words still ringing in her ears. "Go back to Atlanta, Z. Please." His voice, raw with pain, had carved a hollow in her chest. She left him standing in the dust, his blue eyes haunted, and now the distance between them felt wider than the Georgia River they'd once raced beside. Her sketch pad lay untouched on her apartment's cluttered table, its pages blank, her muse drowned in the ache of his absence. Zaria forced herself to move, to breathe, to paint. Her latest piece, a half-finished canvas of the oak tree, where she and Lucas had carved their initials, stood in her tiny studio, its colors muted, like her spirit. She'd promised herself she'd finish it for the upcoming gallery show, a chance to showcase her work to Atlanta's art scene. But every brushstroke felt like a betrayal, a step further from the boy who'd been her home. Her phone buzzed with texts from friends, invitations to dinners and parties, but she ignored them. Lucas hadn't called, hadn't written, and the silence was a wound that bled anew each day. The gallery show arrived like a storm, sudden and unavoidable. Zaria stood in the crowded loft, her paintings lining the walls, their vibrant hues a stark contrast to the gray fog in her mind. Her centerpiece, River at Dusk, drew whispers and nods, a swirling blend of blues and golds that captured the Willow Creek River under a fading sky. She wore a simple black dress, her curls tamed into a loose bun, but her eyes darted nervously, searching for a distraction from the ache. Art collectors mingled, their voices a low hum, but Zaria felt like a ghost among them, present but unseen. Then a voice cut through the din, smooth as polished stone. "This is remarkable. It's like the river's alive, whispering its own story." Zaria turned to find a man studying River at Dusk, his gaze intense, as if peering into her soul. He was in his early 30s, with sharp cheekbones, dark hair swept back, and a tailored suit that spoke of wealth. His skin was pale, a contrast to the warm brown of hers, and his eyes, a piercing gray, held a curiosity that unnerved her. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "It's, personal." He extended a hand, his smile disarming. "Ethan Caldwell, Caldwell Innovations. And you must be Zaria Thompson, the artist who's stealing the show." His grip was firm, his tone warm but calculated, like a man used to commanding attention. Zaria nodded, withdrawing her hand quickly. "Just trying to tell a story with paint." She glanced at the painting, seeing Lucas in every stroke, the boy who'd run with her along that river, who'd almost been hers. The memory stung, and she forced a smile. Ethan didn't look away. "This one," he gestured to the canvas, "it's got a soul. Where's it from?" "Willow Creek," she said, the name a quiet ache. "A small town south of here. The river's where I grew up." He tilted his head as if memorizing her words. "It's rare to see such heart in art. I'd love to know more about the woman behind it." His tone was polite, but there was a weight to it, an invitation she wasn't sure she wanted to accept. The conversation shifted to her work, her process, and she found herself relaxing, drawn in by his genuine interest. Ethan was different from the usual gallery crowd. No pretension, no empty flattery. He spoke of art with a passion that surprised her, and when he mentioned his company's work in community projects, she listened. Caldwell Innovations, he explained, funded education and health initiatives worldwide. "We're always looking for creative minds," he said, his eyes locking on hers. "Someone like you could make a difference." Zaria's guard went up. "I'm an artist, Mr. Caldwell, not a corporate type." "Call me Ethan," he said, unfazed. "And I'm not talking cubicles. We need visionaries for our global campaigns, someone who can tell stories through art." He handed her a sleek business card, its edges sharp as his ambition. "Think about it." She tucked the card into her pocket, unsure why her pulse quickened. The night wore on, and Ethan lingered, asking about her inspirations, her roots. When she mentioned Willow Creek again, her voice faltered, and Lucas's face flashed in her mind. His pain, his plea to let him go. Ethan noticed the shift, his gaze softening. "Something tells me that river holds more than just memories," he said, his voice low, almost tender. Zarya looked away, her fingers tightening around her glass. "It holds everything," she whispered, the truth slipping out before she could stop it. A week later, she met Ethan again, this time at a sleek downtown cafe, its glass walls reflecting the city's restless energy. She'd agreed to discuss his offer, driven by curiosity and a need to escape the emptiness of her apartment. Over coffee, Ethan outlined a role, designing visuals for a project in Nairobi, Kenya, to teach art to underprivileged children. The pay was generous, the impact real. But Zaria hesitated, her heart tethered to Willow Creek, to Lucas. As they talked, she let slip the weight she carried. "Someone I care about. His pa's real sick," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Cancer. They can't afford the treatment, and he shut me out to deal with it alone." Ethan leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "That's a heavy burden," he said. "If I may ask, how much are the treatments?" She shook her head, unsure why she'd shared so much. "Thousands. More than they've got." He was quiet for a moment, then spoke with a quiet resolve. "My company has a charitable fund. We've covered medical costs before. Cancer treatments, surgeries. If you're serious about working with us, I could arrange for the fund to cover his father's care. No strings attached, just a commitment to the Nairobi project." Zarya's breath caught. The offer was a lifeline, a way to save Lucas's father without him knowing, without him pushing her away again. But it meant leaving Atlanta, leaving him for 3 years. Her mind raced, picturing Lucas's face, the oak tree, the river. "Why would you do this?" she asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. Ethan's smile was faint, tinged with something like regret. "I lost someone once because I didn't act when I could have. I don't want you to carry that kind of regret." His words hit hard, stirring the guilt she felt for leaving Lucas in Willow Creek. She didn't say yes, not yet. But as she left the cafe, Ethan's card in her hand, the possibility burned in her mind. The city lights blurred, and she saw the river, the oak, Lucas's eyes. Could she save his father and lose him in the process? The question clung to her like damp Georgia air, heavy and unrelenting. The Atlanta night pressed against Zaria Thompson's apartment window, a canvas of stars smudged by city lights. She sat at her cluttered desk, Ethan Caldwell's business card, a stark white against the chaos of paint tubes and sketches. Its edges were sharp, like the decision slicing through her heart. For days, his offer had haunted her. Caldwell Innovations would fund treatment for Lucas's father, Michael, if she committed to a 3-year art project in Nairobi. The cost was steep, leaving Lucas, her home, the oak tree where their initials were carved. But the thought of Michael, frail and fading in Willow Creek, was a weight she couldn't ignore. Lucas had pushed her away to protect her dreams. Now she would protect his family, even if it meant breaking her own heart. Zaria's fingers trembled as she opened her laptop, researching Caldwell Innovations. The company's website gleamed with photos of smiling children and glowing reports of global charity work. Articles praised its education programs, but a nagging unease lingered. Ethan's gray eyes had held a flicker of something unspoken, a shadow behind his polished charm. She shook it off, telling herself it was paranoia. The contract he'd sent was clear. The charitable fund would cover Michael's treatments, with payments wired directly to the hospital as an anonymous donation. In return, she designed visuals for a Nairobi initiative teaching art to underprivileged youth. It was a chance to save a life and chase her own art, but at the cost of the boy who was her river, her oak, her everything. She hadn't spoken to Lucas since that night in Willow Creek, when his plea to leave had cut deeper than the knife they'd used to carve their names. His silence since then was a wound, each unanswered call a fresh bleed. Zarya knew he was drowning in his father's illness, his family's debts, but his rejection stung. She wanted to scream, to drive back and shake sense into him, but Ethan's offer demanded secrecy. If Lucas knew, his pride would make him refuse the help, and Michael would suffer. So she chose silence, a sacrifice as heavy as the Georgia heat. The decision came at dawn after a sleepless night. Zarya signed the contract, her signature a jagged line on the screen. She emailed it to Ethan, her heart pounding as the confirmation pinged back. It was done. She'd leave in a week, her flight booked to Nairobi, a city as foreign as the future she faced without Lucas. She wrote a letter, her pen trembling over the paper. "Lucas," it began, "I got a chance to work abroad, to make my art matter. I need to do this, for me. I'll always carry you with me." The lie burned. Her art wasn't the reason, but she couldn't tell him the truth. She sealed the letter and mailed it to his mother, Ellen, with a note. "Please give this to him after I'm gone." Packing was a blur. Zaria folded her clothes, her sketch pads, the small oak leaf pendant Lucas had given her at 16. Each item was a tether to Willow Creek, to him. She avoided her painting of the oak tree, its half-finished branches a mirror of her fractured heart. Ethan called to confirm the first hospital payment, his voice smooth but distant. "You're doing the right thing, Zaria," he said. "Michael's treatments start tomorrow." She nodded, though he couldn't see, and hung up, the weight of her choice settling like dust. The day before her flight, Zaria walked through Atlanta's streets, the city's pulse a stark contrast to her turmoil. She passed galleries where her paintings hung, cafes where she'd laughed with friends, but all she saw was Lucas, his freckled grin, his hand brushing hers beneath the oak. She stopped at a park, sketching the skyline, her pencil tracing lines she'd never share with him. Her phone stayed silent, and she wondered if he'd forgotten her, if Willow Creek had swallowed him whole. That night, Ellen called. "Lucas knows you're leaving," she said, her voice thick with worry. "He found your letter early. He's driving to Atlanta, Zaria. He's coming to the airport." Zaria's heart lurched, a mix of dread and longing. She hadn't wanted this, a goodbye that could unravel her resolve. But the thought of seeing him, even for a moment, was a flame she couldn't extinguish. The airport was a chaos of voices and rolling suitcases, its fluorescent lights harsh against Zaria's sleepless eyes. She stood at the check-in counter, her boarding pass to Nairobi trembling in her hand. Her curls were pulled back, her face bare of makeup, as if she could strip herself of the pain. Then a familiar voice cut through the din, raw and desperate. "Z, wait!" She turned, and there was Lucas, his hair disheveled, his blue eyes wild with panic. He pushed through the crowd, his flannel shirt untucked, his boots scuffed from the long drive. "You can't go," he said, his voice breaking as he reached her. "Not like this." Zaria's throat tightened, tears threatening to spill. "Lucas, I have to," she said, her voice a fragile thread. "It's a chance I can't miss." He grabbed her hand, his grip fierce, as if he could anchor her to Georgia. "Something ain't right, Z. I know you. This ain't just about art. And Pa, someone's paying for his treatments. It's you, ain't it?" His eyes searched hers, seeing through her lie as he always had. She pulled her hand free, the motion a knife in her chest. "It's not me," she said, the words ash in her mouth. "I don't know who it is. But I'm going to Nairobi, Lucas. For me." The lie was a wall, built to protect him, but it crumbled her heart, his face twisted, pain and anger warring. "You're leaving me, just like I asked. But it don't feel right. Z, I—" He stopped, his voice choking. "I love you. I've always loved you." The confession shattered her. She wanted to collapse into his arms, to confess everything. Ethan, the contract, her sacrifice. But she saw Michael's face, frail and fading, and knew she had to stay strong. "I love you too," she whispered, tears spilling now. "But sometimes love means letting go." She stepped back, her suitcase a barrier between them. Lucas reached for her, but she turned, walking toward the security gate. Each step was a wound, his voice calling her name a fading echo. "Z, please!" he shouted, but the crowd swallowed her. She didn't look back, afraid one glance would break her resolve. At the gate, she sank into a chair, sobbing silently, the oak leaf pendant cold against her skin. As the plane's engines roared, Zaria pressed her forehead to the window, Atlanta shrinking below. She'd saved Michael, but at what cost? Lucas's confession rang in her ears, a promise she'd left unanswered. The river, the oak, their love. They were hers even in Nairobi. But as the sky darkened, she wondered if she'd ever find her way back to him. The Nairobi sky burned crimson as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the bustling city. Zaria Thompson stood on the balcony of her modest apartment, the air thick with the scent of dust and blooming jacarandas. Below, street vendors hawked their wares, their voices weaving a chaotic symphony with the hum of motorbikes and distant laughter. It had been 2 months since she'd left Atlanta, since Lucas's desperate plea at the airport had shattered her heart. His words, "I love you. I've always loved you," echoed in her mind, a haunting melody she couldn't silence. She clutched the oak leaf pendant at her neck, its edges worn from her constant touch, a tether to Willow Creek, to him. But Nairobi was her reality now, a world away from the river and the oak, and she was here to save a life, even if it meant losing her own. Zaria had thrown herself into her work at Caldwell Innovations, determined to make her sacrifice count. The company's Nairobi office, a sleek glass building in the city's heart, buzzed with ambition. Her role, designing visuals for an art education program for underprivileged children, was a lifeline, a way to channel her grief into creation. She led workshops in dusty community centers, teaching kids to paint their dreams on scavenged canvases. Their smiles, bright against the weight of their hardships, reminded her of her own childhood, of sketching by the river with Lucas. Her murals, vibrant swirls of color depicting Kenyan landscapes, adorned school walls, earning praise from her colleagues. "You're a natural, Zaria," her supervisor, Amina, said, her eyes warm. "You're changing lives." But beneath the surface, a quiet unease gnawed at Zaria. Caldwell Innovations operations were polished, almost too perfect. Budget reports she glimpsed during meetings showed massive sums allocated to community outreach. Yet some schools she visited lacked basic supplies. She overheard cryptic phone calls, her colleagues' voices dropping when she entered the room. Ethan Caldwell, who'd flown in once to check on the project, had been distant, his gray eyes scanning her work with a scrutiny that felt like a warning. "Keep up the momentum," he'd said, his smile tight. "We're counting on you." His words lingered, heavy with an unspoken expectation. One humid evening, as thunder rumbled in the distance, Zaria stayed late at the office, finalizing a mural design. The building was eerily quiet, the hum of computers the only sound. She'd been granted access to the shared server to upload her files, a privilege Amina had assured was routine. But as she navigated the folders, a misclick opened a directory labeled Financial Archives. Curiosity, sharp as a blade, urged her forward. She hesitated, her pulse quickening, then opened a file marked Cayman Transfers. What she found stole her breath. Spreadsheets detailed millions of dollars funneled through the company's charitable fund to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Memos written in terse corporate jargon referenced discretionary allocations and partner discretion. One email sent from an anonymous account to Ethan read, "Ensure the Nairobi project remains clean. No traces." Zaria's hands shook as she scrolled, piecing together the truth. Caldwell Innovations was laundering money, using its charity projects as a front. The fund that paid for Michael's treatments, her sacrifice, was tainted, a lie wrapped in good intentions. She cross-checked the hospital payments, her heart sinking. The transfers to Willow Creek were real, documented as legitimate donations, but they came from the same fund fueling this dark web. Ethan knew. His offer hadn't been pure. It was a calculated move, tying her to a machine she didn't understand. Zaria's mind raced, picturing Lucas, his father's frail frame, the oak tree where they'd vowed forever. She'd saved Michael, but at what cost? The truth was a noose tightening around her. A noise, a faint creak from the hallway, snapped her back. She closed the file, her fingers fumbling, and logged out, her breath shallow. The office felt smaller, the shadows sharper. She grabbed her laptop, shoving it into her bag, and slipped out, the humid air a slap against her skin. Nairobi's streets, alive with light, offered no comfort. She felt eyes on her, though the crowds were indifferent. Was she paranoid, or had someone seen her screen? Back in her apartment, Zaria locked the door, her heart pounding. She opened her laptop, her hands steadier now, and copied the files to a USB drive, her movements precise, driven by a fire she hadn't felt since Atlanta. She wasn't just an artist. She was a fighter, forged in Willow Creek's dust. She thought of Maya, her college friend turned investigative journalist, whose tenacity had always inspired her. Maya would know what to do. Zarya drafted an email, attaching the files through an encrypted service she'd learned about in college. Maya, she wrote, this is bigger than me. Caldwell's dirty, and I need your help. Don't reply until I'm safe. She hit send, the click a small rebellion against the weight of her discovery. But the USB wasn't enough. She needed more proof, something undeniable. She spent the next week playing her role, smiling at workshops, submitting designs, while discreetly digging. She photographed budget reports, recorded snippets of overheard conversations, her phone hidden in her pocket. Each night she updated the USB, her apartment a fortress of secrets. She wrote to Lucas, a letter she didn't send, pouring out her fear, her love, her resolve. I did this for your pa, but now it's for me too. I won't let them win. The words were her anchor, a promise to the boy she'd left behind. One night, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Be careful, Zarya, you're not invisible. Her blood ran cold. She double-checked her locks, her curtains drawn tight. The message confirmed her fears. Someone knew she was digging? Was it Ethan, or the faceless partners in the memos? She clutched the oak leaf pendant, whispering Lucas's name like a prayer. Nairobi, once a place of purpose, was now a labyrinth of danger, and she was alone. But Zarya wasn't broken. She'd faced Willow Creek's whispers, Lucas's rejection, the ache of leaving home. This was just another fight. She booked a call with Maya for the next day, using a burner phone from a market stall. As the city slept, she stared at the USB, its plastic shell holding a truth that could burn Caldwell Innovations to the ground. The river, the oak, Lucas, they were with her, urging her forward. She'd expose the lies, not just for Michael, but for every child whose dreams were exploited by greed. The storm was coming, and Zarya Thompson was ready to face it. The Nairobi dawn broke in shards of gold, but Zarya Thompson felt no warmth. She sat hunched in her apartment, the USB drive clutched in her hand, its contents a ticking bomb that could topple Caldwell Innovations. The anonymous text from last night, "Be careful, Zarya, you're not invisible," had kept her awake, her eyes darting to the locked door, the drawn curtains. Nairobi's vibrant pulse, once a comfort, now felt like a trap closing around her. She'd sent the incriminating files to Maya, her journalist friend, days ago, but the wait for a response was a torment. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow whispered danger. Yet beneath the fear, a fire burned. Zarya wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for Lucas, for his father Michael, for the children whose dreams were exploited by the company's lies. Her burner phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with Maya's encrypted message. Got the files. Story goes live tomorrow. Interpol's involved. Get out of Nairobi now. Zarya's heart pounded, relief warring with dread. She'd exposed the truth. Millions laundered through Caldwell's charitable fund, masked as aid, but the cost was her safety. She booked a flight to Atlanta for that evening, her hands shaking as she packed. Her sketch pad, the oak leaf pendant, a photo of her and Lucas by the river. These were her anchors, reminders of why she'd risked everything. She wrote a final letter to Lucas, unsent, her words a lifeline. I'm coming home, but not the same. I did this for your pa, for us, for what's right. The flight was a blur, the hum of the plane drowning out her racing thoughts. In Atlanta, Interpol agents met her at the gate, their faces stern but kind. You're safe now, Ms. Thompson, one said, escorting her to a secure hotel. Your evidence is airtight. Zarya nodded, exhausted but resolute. She'd handed over the USB, the photos, the recorded conversations, every scrap of proof that Caldwell Innovations was a front for a money-laundering empire. But as she sank into the hotel bed, the oak leaf pendant cold against her skin, a new fear gripped her. Michael's treatments. The hospital payments, funded by Caldwell's tainted charity, were in jeopardy. The next morning, Maya's article hit like a thunderclap. Headline, Charity or Crime, Caldwell Innovations' Dark Secret. It dominated every major outlet, detailing the company's offshore accounts and fake projects. Social media erupted, Hashtags like one was Caldwell exposed trending worldwide. Ethan Caldwell, the polished CEO who'd promised Zaria salvation, was arrested in London, his face grim on every screen. The article revealed his role, not the mastermind, but a complicit figure, coerced by a shadowy kingpin who pulled the strings. Ethan had tried to warn Zaria, a cryptic email sent hours before his arrest. "I'm sorry, I never meant for you to get caught in this." She deleted it, her anger a sharp edge. His regret was too late, but the fallout hit closer to home. Zaria called the Willow Creek Hospital, her voice trembling as she asked about Michael's treatments. The administrator's tone was grim. "The charitable fund's been frozen pending investigation. We need $30,000 to continue Mr. Bennett's care." Zaria's stomach dropped. Michael had improved, his coughs less frequent, his strength returning, but without the drugs, he'd fade again. Lucas, she knew, would be reeling, grateful for the stranger who'd saved his father, unaware it was her, and now facing the loss of that lifeline. She couldn't call him, not yet. The truth of her sacrifice was a burden she wasn't ready to share. Zaria paced the hotel room, her mind racing. She'd expose Caldwell, but at what cost? The children in Nairobi, the schools she'd painted, were collateral damage in a war she'd started. And Michael, her whole reason for leaving Lucas, was at risk. She stopped, her gaze falling on her sketch pad, open to a pencil sketch of River at Dusk, the painting that had caught Ethan's eye at the gallery. The canvas, still in her Atlanta studio, was more than art. It was her heart, her home, her love for Lucas poured onto cloth. An idea sparked, reckless but fierce. She'd sell it, turn her pain into salvation. She called Maya, who'd become her fiercest ally. "I need a favor," Zaria said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "Can you get River at Dusk to a gallery? I want to auction it, fast, for Michael's treatments." Maya, ever the whirlwind, agreed, her voice crackling with excitement. "The world's watching you, Zaria. This'll be huge." Within days, Maya leveraged the media frenzy to organize the auction at an Atlanta gallery. The story of Zaria's bravery, her whistleblowing, her sacrifice, had leaked, turning River at Dusk into a symbol of defiance. The painting, a swirl of blues and golds capturing the Willow Creek River, was billed as the artwork that toppled an empire. Zaria stood in the gallery on auction night, her black dress stark against the white walls, her curls loose, her eyes fierce. The crowd buzzed, art collectors, activists, reporters, all drawn to the woman who'd risked everything. Maya squeezed her hand, whispering, "You're a hero, girl." The bidding began, and Zaria's heart raced as numbers climbed. 10,000, an art dealer called. 20, shouted a philanthropist. The room pulsed with energy, each bid a testament to her courage. When the gavel fell at $50,000, the crowd erupted in applause. Zaria's knees buckled, tears streaming down her face. It was enough, more than enough, to cover Michael's treatments for months, maybe years. She clutched the oak leaf pendant, whispering a silent thank you to the river, to Lucas, to the girl she'd been beneath the oak. But the victory was bittersweet. Maya's article had named her as the whistleblower, and though Interpol promised protection, Zaria felt exposed, a target for those still loyal to Caldwell's network. She checked her phone, hoping for a message from Lucas, but found only silence. He didn't know she'd saved his father, didn't know she'd nearly lost herself to do it. The auction's success was a light in the dark, but the shadow of their separation loomed large. That night, Zaria sat alone in her hotel room, the city's glow filtering through the blinds. She opened her sketch pad, her pencil tracing the oak tree's branches, Lucas's face in every line. The $50,000 was wired to the hospital, marked as an anonymous donation, just as she'd planned. Michael would live, but at what cost to her and Lucas? She wrote another letter, her words raw. "I did this for your pa, but I'm still yours. Wait for me." She didn't send it, not yet. The fight wasn't over. Caldwell's kingpin was still out there, and Zaria's truth had only begun to unravel the lies. But as she closed her eyes, the river's murmur called to her, promising a way home. The Greyhound bus rumbled along the Georgia highway, its wheels kicking up red dust that shimmered in the late afternoon sun. Zaria Thompson pressed her forehead against the window, her breath fogging the glass as Willow Creek drew near. 3 months had passed since she'd fled Nairobi, since Maya's article had toppled Caldwell Innovations and sent Ethan Caldwell to a cell. The $50,000 from her painting River at Dusk had secured Michael Bennett's treatments, but the cost of her absence weighed heavy. Lucas's face, his desperate plea at the Atlanta airport, his confession of love, haunted her dreams. She clutched the oak leaf pendant at her neck, its edges smoothed by her touch, a fragile bridge to the boy she'd left behind. Willow Creek was home, but would it still hold her heart? Atlanta had been a whirlwind. Zaria had cooperated with Interpol, her testimony sealing the case against Caldwell's money laundering network. The media hailed her as a hero, but the spotlight burned. She'd hidden in Maya's apartment, dodging reporters, her sketch pad her only solace. She'd drawn the river, the oak, Lucas's eyes, each line a step toward healing. But Lucas hadn't called, hadn't written, and the silence was a wound deeper than Nairobi's dangers. Had he moved on, believing she'd chosen art over him? The thought was a knife, twisting with every mile. The bus lurched to a stop at Willow Creek's dusty station, and Zaria stepped off, her boots crunching on gravel. The air smelled of honeysuckle and earth, a balm to her frayed nerves. She scanned the lot, expecting solitude, but there they were. Lucas and Michael standing by an old pickup truck. Michael, once frail, now stood taller, his cheeks flushed with health, a testament to her sacrifice. Lucas, his hair longer, his blue eyes shadowed, looked at her like she was a ghost. Her heart stuttered, fear and longing colliding. "Z," Lucas whispered, his voice rough, as he crossed the distance in 3 strides. Before she could speak, he pulled her into his arms, his embrace fierce, as if she might vanish again. "You're home." His words were a prayer, warm against her hair, and she clung to him, tears soaking his flannel shirt. Michael approached, his smile soft. "You saved me, Zaria. I don't know how, but I know it was you." His voice cracked, and she shook her head, unable to speak. The truth, her deal with Ethan, the painting, the danger, felt too heavy to share here, under the open sky. They drove to the Bennett house, the river glinting through the trees, a mirror of her childhood. Over dinner, Ellen fussed over Zaria, piling her plate with cornbread and collards, her eyes brimming with gratitude. Lucas sat close, his knee brushing hers, a silent promise. But Zaria sensed his questions, his hurt, and knew they'd need to talk, to unravel the months apart. That night they walked to the oak tree, the river murmuring its ancient song. The moon cast silver light on the bark, their initials, ZT and LB, etched deep, a vow unbroken. Lucas stopped, his hands in his pockets, his gaze intense. "Why didn't you tell me, Z?" His voice was low, raw. "About Caldwell, the money, all of it. I'd have fought for you." Zaria's throat tightened. "You'd have said no," she said, her voice trembling. "Your pa needed those treatments, and you needed him. I couldn't let you lose him, not after you pushed me away." Tears fell, and she didn't stop them. "I left to save him, but I never stopped loving you." Lucas stepped closer, his hand cupping her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. "I was a fool, thinking I could protect you by letting you go. When I heard about Caldwell, about what you did, Z, you're braver than I'll ever be." His voice broke, and he pulled a small box from his pocket, the silver ring glinting. "I've carried this for years, waiting for the right moment. Ain't no moment righter than now." He knelt, his eyes locked on hers. "Marry me, Zaria. Be my home." Her breath caught, the river's whisper fading into silence. "Yes," she whispered, and he slipped the ring on her finger, its oak leaf etching a perfect fit. They kissed, slow and fierce. The oak standing sentinel, the river singing their reunion. The wedding was simple, held a month later beneath the oak. Zaria wore a white sundress, her curls loose, the oak leaf pendant gleaming. Lucas, in a borrowed suit, wore his father's silver band, his smile brighter than the Georgia sun. Michael walked her down the aisle, a path of wildflowers strewn by Ellen, his strength a quiet miracle. Friends from Willow Creek gathered, their whispers of race and propriety silenced by the love before them. Maya, radiant in a yellow dress, snapped photos, her laughter a spark in the air. As they exchanged vows, Zaria's voice was steady. You're my river, Lucas, my oak, my forever. His eyes glistened, his promise echoing hers. The river flowed, a witness to their union, its waters carrying their past into a shared future. They settled in Atlanta, Zaria opening a gallery to nurture young Black artists, her workshops free, her murals a canvas for dreams. Lucas joined a nonprofit, protecting rivers like the one that bound them, his hands still calloused, his heart still hers. Michael thrived, his laughter a daily gift, and Ellen baked cornbread for Sunday dinners. Their family whole. Each year on Zaria's birthday, they returned to Willow Creek, to the oak. They'd carve a small line beside their initials, a mark of time, of love enduring. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Zaria sketched the river, Lucas beside her, their hands entwined. We made it, she said, her voice soft, the pendant warm against her skin. Always will, he replied, kissing her temple. The river flowed on, its song a lullaby for their forever, a home forged through sacrifice and unbreakable vows.